going to talk about the top 6 most impactful biohacking upgrades that I've come up with over the past $250,000 and 15 or so years. This is meant to be sort of a crash course if you don't want to read lots of stuff. These are the ones that give you the most bang for the buck. Number 1, vitamin D3, the sunshine vitamin. According to the Vitamin D Research Institute and Dr. Cammel's work, 1,000 IUs for every 25 pounds of body weight is the right amount. And there may be a more politically correct way to say this. If you have a dark complexion, you need more sun exposure, because if I was at the equator, I would burn and I would not do very well. Likewise, if someone whose skin is optimized to be at the equator goes far north away from sun, it takes a lot more sun to make vitamin D. And we're finding problems now, especially in minority communities, where well-meaning parents are taking their kids out of the sun, they're slathering sunscreen on them, and there isn't enough sun in order to even make vitamin D3 to prevent rickets. There are cases of parents who've been accused of abuse because their kids have multiple broken bones, their babies have broken bones. It's not because of abuse, it's because their children actually don't have enough vitamin D to make healthy bones. So, it's extra important if you have dark skin. But even if you have light-colored skin and you live in Phoenix, you've probably been taught. My mom actually grew up in Phoenix and in Roswell. Stay out of the sun. You don't want to get sunburned. Put on sunblock. Wear long sleeves. Have a big hat. If you do that all the time, you are not doing yourself any favors. A tan is okay. If you're not going to do that, at least take your vitamin D supplements. It costs about $40 to get a vitamin D blood level test. If you're not going to get the test, this is the amount that I recommend based on Dr. Cammel's work. There are 1,000 biological processes that vitamin D influences, and development of your brain is part of them. Kids who don't get a little bit of sunshine every day will not perform as well in school as kids who get some sunshine. It's actually really important. Maintaining your hardware for your body. I have a whole infographic on the website where I talk about more than, there's 1,000 studies that went into saying these are foods that are better for you than these foods based on a whole bunch of things. Let's go through the list here. Bulletproof diet is essentially more detail than we're going to cover in the time we've got. You can look at it if you'd like. And the other thing is exercise. We've been taught since about the 70s when jogging became cool, more exercise is better, and if you don't exercise at all, it's because you're a bad person. Well, it turns out that the exercise that has the most impact is very high intensity, very short duration exercise. Here I'm quoting the work from Dr. Doug McGuff, who's a friend of mine, and he wrote Body by Science. He's an emergency room physician and an exercise physiologist who spent many years looking at what exercise causes the most change in the least amount of time. It turns out that for kids on the playground, if they're going to go jogging in circles around the playground, don't get very much. You have those same kids do a sprint or have them hang on the monkey bars, they'll actually build more muscle in less time and have better hormonal effects, and they'll use the sugar in their diet better, and their hormones actually get healthier. So also, if they do that every day for 5 hours a day, it creates stress in the system and they don't get time for recovery. So my 5-year-old, my 3-year-old, they play all the time, and anytime I can get them to hang from something or show me they can carry the heavy jugs, they do that, that's fine. But I don't actually tell them they need to run in circles around the backyard over and over, they just do that by themselves. Exactly. Especially when I give them extra coffee. To be fair, kids metabolize caffeine twice as fast as we do, so they're more immune to coffee. Here's how to divide your calories. This may be offensive to some. In fact, I hope it is. Healthy fat, which does not include canola oil, half your calories want to come from that. And the reason for that is especially true in kids under 7. Kids under 7, in order to get fatty acids into their brains, and they need fatty acids in their brains because your brain is made out of fat, the only way that fat enters the brain is by the children going into a mild state of ketosis, which means they go into fat burning mode. They create these fat molecules called ketones that go into the brain, which reassembles them into the proper fats for the brain. There are a number of researchers and quite a few scientists, I would say including Gary Taubes, who's written enormous bodies of work on this, who looked at the effect of a high healthy fat diet, things like coconut oil, grass-fed butter, animal fat from healthy animals, olive oil, some nut oils, things like that, can have a dramatic impact on energy levels in kids. They don't need to snack every hour and a half in order to stay focused. They get full, and they stay full, and they stay focused, and they pay attention better than you've ever seen before. Even a tablespoon of coconut oil in a morning bowl of oatmeal, let's say, is going to change the focus of that child. Coconut oil is particularly good for improving brain function because of some medium chain fats that kids really benefit from. I see so many well-meaning parents, particularly in Silicon Valley, who immediately take their 1-year-olds and they put them on a low-fat diet. But look at breast milk. Breast milk is not a low-fat food. It's a very high-fat food. Look at an egg. What's in that egg yolk, is everything you need to make a baby chicken. And you know how many pieces of fruit are in that egg? There's none. How many pieces of like vegetables or sticks or twigs or anything like that? Nothing. So that's not to say you shouldn't eat your vegetables. You should eat your vegetables. But if you eat your vegetables and you don't put enough fat on them to support the growth of a healthy brain and myelination of nerves and the other things, you're not doing your kids a service. I was really pleased to see tonight we had some nice fish with omega-3 oil in it. That's really good. And those are the sorts of foods we want to give our kids. And here's the cool thing. Saturated fat is a part of the brain. And saturated fat is ridiculously cheap, including coconut oil and including butter from grass-fed animals. It costs $1 or $2 a pound. We can get this into kids' food without spending a lot of money. In fact, on a per-calorie basis, butter is way, way underpriced. Good butter is also full of nutrients. And a lot of kids are getting type 2 diabetes because they have excess amounts of starch. And I say this as a guy who lost 100 pounds on this diet. I have hundreds and hundreds of people who posted on the blog. In fact, there's a guy in the room who's lost 60 pounds on this diet over the course of a year. You don't cut calories, you just cut inappropriate types of fat that cause inflammation, and you cut a lot of the starch out of the diet. When you do that, you have to buy new pants. I used to get mad. I had my favorite pair of Dockers and they don't fit me again this month. There's three things food. The first one is it the right macronutrients? What this means, is it the right kind of protein, the right kind of fat, or the right kind of starch or sugar, although you don't want too much of those. If the food doesn't have that, then it's not really food. If it's all the wrong kind of oil or it's all high fructose corn syrup, sorry, you can check that off, I'm not going to eat that. And then you look at the thing that no one pays attention to, which is called an anti-nutrient. If your food has the right macronutrient, but it has things in it that block your absorption of the good stuff, it's still not good for you. The prime example here is soy. Soy has a compound in it that's a goitrogen. It actually slows down thyroid function. When you slow down thyroid function, especially in kids, you get lower IQ and lower energy levels. We don't want to do this to our kids. We don't want to do that to ourselves either. And then you get to micronutrients. The best foods should have lots of micronutrients, no anti-nutrients, and the right macronutrients. But most of the time, we flip this on its head. I have a friend who is 300 pounds. He has type 2 diabetes, he has gout, and he has high blood pressure. And he's younger than I am. And I went out to dinner with him, and he said, I eat 2 bananas a day. And I said, what are you doing eating bananas? Like, they're full of sugar. You have type 2 diabetes. You need to get your sugar down. And he said, but they have potassium. I need potassium for my blood pressure. This is a case of not looking at this in the right order. Micronutrients are terribly important, but you can take a vitamin with potassium in it that doesn't have any sugar in it. So for him, he made the mistake of not looking at macronutrients to get the micronutrients. Everything I rank in the Bulletproof diet is ranked according to this order, where I'll say, yeah, that has good stuff in it. Unfortunately, it has bad stuff too, so it's not as good as this. The other thing is you need to seek perfection in nutrition for kids or for you. Just when you have 2 equal cost decisions, if you can make the decision that is healthier, and it didn't even cost you anything, that's a great decision to make. So I've gone to great lengths to try and rank and prioritize foods so you can make this kind of a decision without having to go through and dig up nutrient information on everything. Finally, I'll tell you, calories are stupid and diets are a scam. I mentioned my 4,000 calorie days experiment there. That's definitely extreme, but I will tell you, 20 to 30% of your calories are used by your brain. You cut your calories, especially your fat calories down, you have less energy for your brain. You have less energy to play. If you go down the path, and we're talking about epigenetics, the science of the environment in you, your body is really smart. It's designed from an animal's body. And if you say, I'm going to just not eat enough calories today, I'm going to cut my calories, and you do that every day, you tell your body, oh God, there's a famine. And this is what your genes will tell you. There's a famine. Oh my God, stress. My species is under threat. I might not be able to reproduce. This is not what you want to tell your body. If you want to thrive, you don't want to raise stress that isn't doing anything for you. You want to use your stress intelligently. You want stress that causes you to grow, not stress that just creates stress and tells your body there's a famine. So eating enough calories, enough fat-rich calories with the right kinds of fat can lower your stress levels, particularly your catecholamines, your adrenal stress hormones. If you were to combine this with exercising every day, whether it's weightlifting or even worse, long-distance cardio, now what you've told your body is, there's a famine and there's a tiger chasing me every single day and I never get to stop and rest. Oh my God, panic, panic, panic. And you can measure the stress hormones, you can measure the heart rate variability, another sign of stress and overtraining, in people who give themselves large amounts of exercise every day. It feels good for a while because there's an opiate effect, this being in the zone, the runner's high. The problem is, if you're doing this all day, every day, especially in an effort to lose weight, you're probably not going to achieve the goal you're looking for. Teach your body to burn fat for fuel. It's called being in ketosis. Coconut oil will do this for you, in large part. If you have a day where you eat extra coconut oil and or other fats, moderate protein, and not any sugar or starch, well, that first week you'll be a little tired, and suddenly your body will wake up one day and say, you know what, I guess I better burn some fat today. I had one of my blog followers lose 75 pounds in 75 days by eating this way. I'm not suggesting that that's an optimal rate of losing weight. In fact, it's suboptimal. It's too fast because your body needs to deal with toxins that come out from that. But this is the power of your body when it wants to lose weight, when it learns, oh, I can burn fat for fuel. Most of us have never been in fat burning mode. And if you're always in fat burning mode, there's some disadvantages, but if you go in and out of it, you'll find that cognitively, you can do amazing things. Your brain will just, it loves being in this mode. Your brain loves to run on ketones. And finally, eat happy things that ate healthy stuff. This would include tilapia. Learning to use your body is something that is critically important for our kids and for adults. We all have muscles we don't know how to control. It turns out that you can store emotions in those muscles. I know when I started doing yoga, I was like, what the heck? I have all these weird muscles on my spine I didn't know about. And what you can do is you can learn to relax your muscles. Let's see if that'll go. There we go. When you're young, you sit in a certain way, you sometimes just develop unconscious habits. And if you don't spend a lot of time crawling and playing and swinging and doing the things kids are supposed to do, including running around in circles, then you end up not having all the neural connections that you want to have with your body. I found I had all sorts of things, particularly in my feet. I learned to crawl probably the wrong way or something, according to a developmental ophthalmologist. And the way your body's wired is the way your brain is wired. You can't really separate your brain from your body very well. You have a brain, you have a heart brain, a gut brain, and you have this extensive neurological system. And when kids are allowed to move enough, they actually wire their brains better. And it's possible to actually get feedback on how your muscles, how strong they are. And it's very common for people to develop strength in one side, not the other. So one common thing you can do, and it turns out Phoenix has tons of people who do this kind of work, it's called functional movement. So if you stand on a brick and you lean forward and you look at, can I reach down? Does one hand go further down than the other? Well, if so, you have something uneven here, and it creates a biological stress. So if we teach our kids to move effectively and to stretch their bodies and to feel how their muscles work, not only do their brains grow better, but later in life, when they move around, they'll move around without being injured. They'll also probably have less school sports injuries as well. So teaching a practice like yoga or just functional movement where you teach kids, this is the way you move your body, can do wonders for them mentally. Learning to breathe. When my 3-year-old, my son, gets really mad, he gets really mad and I tell him, take some deep breaths. I tell him, calm down. He goes, I can't. I don't know how. I guess you do know how. You take some deep breaths, and you take deep breaths. I don't know that anyone ever taught me to take a deep breath. Maybe my parents did, I don't remember it. But I did later in life learn something called pranayama. It's a yogic breathing technique. Or there's a class called Art of Living. It takes a couple days, and they teach you a very specific set of breathing exercises. They have school programs now. About 25 million people globally do this. I learned it from a venture capitalist guy from Santa Barbara, who put a little class on with one of the very early executives from Intel at this ginormous mansion in Silicon Valley. I'm like, why is this, it just seemed a little weird to me. But I went because, it was a friend of a friend kind of thing. And I learned there that if I breathed properly, learned how to breathe here, and I did it for about 10 or 15 minutes a day, that everything was easier all week long. Kind of a ridiculous amount of easy. And what was going on there was that my own stress response was calming, and that the part of my body that I don't really have conscious control over normally was getting calmer. And this is the autonomic nervous system. This is the fight or flight response we all have. It stems from our reptilian brain. It's really cool at keeping us alive, because if you're walking along at night and someone jumps out and says, boo, before you have a chance to think about it, you're 2 feet up in the air and backing off. That response happened before you could even think about what happened. It turns out that if some guy wearing orange glasses beat you up in 2nd grade, when you first saw me, your body would have said instantly, within microseconds, pattern match, that guy's a threat. And then you wouldn't necessarily have been conscious of it, but if we were monitoring your skin, the micro amounts of sweat on your skin, we would have been able to measure a change. If we were measuring your heart rate, we would have been able to know that the variability of your heart rate changed and you got ready to run away or to fight me. All of us are wired with this pattern matching that happens for the set of experiences that happen to us, particularly when we're young. If you are not somehow trained to be aware of this or to turn it off, you can be in a world of stress with no idea why or how the stress is, because this is not stress from the logical, conscious part of you that you think of as yourself. This is from the automatic systems that keep you from getting eaten by tigers. So we need to teach ourselves that everything is not a tiger, because your body doesn't know what's a tiger versus what's a normal stress. You know that, and you can actually control those things. Breathing helps. 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. If you do it daily for 40 days, I don't know a better way to put it, magic stuff happens. You end up just developing a calmer sense. You might say, why 40 days? Here's the deal. The Bible likes 40 days. If you go to the East and you talk to an Ayurvedic practitioner or a Buddhist, they'll tell you 40 days. If you talk to a Western psychologist, they'll tell you 42 days, which is 6 weeks. Or if you like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe, that's also 42 is a key number. It doesn't matter, 40 or 42, but about 6 weeks. If you do something for that long, that's the amount of time it takes you to form a new habit, and it sort of just becomes wired in. So I had profound benefits from doing this. In fact, I used to meet in a room every Saturday morning for about 45 minutes with a group of extremely successful entrepreneurs. And we'd all get up early and go sit and do breathing exercises. And one of the guys said, I do this because it's like taking a mental shower. Like if I do this once a week, everything is easier. I'm nicer to my employees and nicer to the people around me. So I believe that teaching our kids and ourselves to breathe properly can just lower stress levels. When you do that, people are kinder to each other. You might actually get sick less too, and your brain works better, things like that. You can train your heart. No, I don't mean by cardio training. If you want to train your heart for cardio, you actually train your heart to be able to pump an enormous volume of blood in one heartbeat, which is the opposite of what cardio does. So lift heavy things or do a sprint if you want to train that kind of thing. Let's go to the next one. You can teach yourself to have different spacing of your heartbeat. The space between your heartbeats is hugely indicative of actually how long you'll live, including death from all causes, and it controls your stress response. Let's go down one more. You have this autonomic nervous system. You have a sympathetic nervous system and a parasympathetic nervous system. I talked about that reptile brain that's ready to run away from the tiger. It turns out, with a little device that has a light that turns green when your heart's beating the right way, you can consciously teach yourself in very short order, like a week of playing with it for a few minutes a day. You can teach yourself to have your heart beat differently. And it turns out what you're doing is you're teaching your body the physiological state of turning off stress. It's like riding a bicycle. You have training wheels for a little while, and all of a sudden you can just do it. Well, when you have this little device that turns green when you're doing it right, you suddenly find that you can now turn on happy when before you would just feel stressed. This may sound kind of like woo-woo, kind of whatever. The US military is buying these for every single person they're deploying today because people who are trained to control their heart rate variability don't get PTSD. They are more resilient than other people. Kids can learn this. The HeartMath Institute, it's a nonprofit, they have a for-profit arm that sells these devices that cost a couple $100. They have programs for kids. And if you take a child and you teach them to turn off their stress and fear response and to have conscious control of it, so that they know, oh wow, I'm feeling really stressed right now, I better take a deep breath. When I take a deep breath, if I do this little thing, then I'm still in charge. They like that, they love that. Kids want to be in charge of themselves. And if they're in charge of their stress, then they're less likely to smack the kid next to them. And we all want that. It increases brain function. 80% of the nerves go from your heart to your brain. So you can actually have kids that are more focused. For adults, same thing, executive function. If you're a teacher, you're dealing with stress, this is a way to literally turn off stress. And it's not that you don't have any stress, it's that you become aware of the stress and you know how to turn on happy. So when you're feeling, you can take that and you can say, you know, I'm going to consciously choose to feel something different. And when you do it, your physiology changes and you will live longer. And I mentioned the longevity piece. It doesn't take that long to do. You can teach kids to do it. You can teach teachers to do it. You can teach adults to do it. And it's the most impactful thing I've ever found for the amount of time and the amount of money it takes. This is a graph of my heart rate when I'm doing high heart rate variability training. The little device just has a green light, a red light, and a blue light, and you can plug it into your computer and see data. Data like this is really cool when you hit a certain age and you're interested in math and data and graphing, because now you're looking at math, you're looking at math that you control with your heart and with your breathing and things like that. It's more fun that way. Finally, upgrading your head. Eating healthy fat will make your brain work better. Our brains are made of fat. We were designed to eat fat. When you eat enough of it, you have more building blocks. You can meditate, or, like me, maybe you're a little bit lazy, so you decide to do it faster. You can do EEG-based neurofeedback. This is something where you look at your brain waves, a computer looks at them, turns them into sounds, and plays the sounds back to your brain. Your brain wants to run as efficiently and as best as it can. The problem is your brain is completely blind to itself. You can see the whole world around it, it can't see itself. There's only one nerve that goes inside the brain, it's tied to how you chew. Other than that, we have nothing. The sounds act to let your brain optimize and rewire itself without you having to do much. The guy who invented this technology is in Scottsdale. It's called brain state technology, and he actually does free training for veterans because this also works to curb post-traumatic stress disorder. It works with autism, it works with ADD, it lowers the effect of those things. And you can take a kid who's really stressed, and you can show his brain why it's acting very stressed, and suddenly behaviors change. The first time I did something similar to this was a decade ago. I had most of the symptoms of Asperger's syndrome, believe it or not, more than a decade ago, until I learned how to eat and how to make my brain work right. I walked into this doctor's office, and there was a kid, just maybe 5, he ran up to me, screamed, and ran in a circle around me over and over and over. It was like the Tasmanian devil was there with me. 6 weeks later, I came in for an appointment, the same kid was there. He walked up to me and goes, "Hi, how are you?" Completely different kid, super transformation, relative short amount of time. Let's go to the next one. One more. This is the same kind of technology from a different set of algorithms for training that cause the 12 IQ point boost. And finally, if you're not sleeping very well, whether you're a student or a teacher, an adult, your quality of life will be poor because you don't get to recover. For $99, you can buy a sleep sensor that goes on your forehead. It would make a great class project because you only need to wear it for a week. And when you wake up in the morning, you get a graph that says how much time were you in REM, how much time were you in deep sleep, how much time did you basically get light sleep that didn't do anything for you, and did you wake up a lot? You get a graph. It goes to the web. You can look at the data, you can play with the data, you can do all sorts of class projects on it. And that one sensor can be used for many different students. It's just a little headband you wear. It doesn't look particularly good with lingerie, other than that, it's okay. And we're done with our top 6, and